basically stake this out to genius level corruption. And what I mean, Maria, is that Hunter Biden previously was going around the world striking business deals. That required a certain level of transparency. If you're sitting on a corporate board, that gets disclosed. The art world is very, very hard to trace money. In fact, the Senate did an investigation in 2019 and concluded that the art world was rife with money laundering, oligarchs moving money around. So going into the art world, Hunter Biden has created a circumstance whereby he can collect $500,000 at a pop for a piece of work, and there's going to be no paper trail. And the White House says the ethics solution here, I will put that in quotation marks, Maria, is that nobody's going to know anything about anyone involved.
I think the Hunter Biden story is way bigger than you're giving it credit for. You mentioned the idea that the right has this obsession with Hunter. I think for good reason. I think the media should have an obsession with Hunter and his particular form of grift. There is a casual corruption in Washington that's been tolerated for a very long time, but this is about as overt as you can get. I mean, Hunter would accompany his father on trips in his official capacity as vice president of the United States. And then he would have business meetings, and then he would arrange meetings with his own father. So he'd have these business partners with whom he was doing this business with, meet them. And what was Hunter selling in particular? He was selling the notion that he had access, that by virtue of hiring Hunter, you're hiring Joe, right? So why does a company like Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company, pay Hunter Biden $50,000 a month when he has no experience in that industry? It's for his name. It's for access. This is what they're trying to buy. We just saw last week, Business Insider put out new emails, nothing to do with the original Hunter Biden laptop. More on that in just a second. But new emails from a pair of Obama donors who were trying to unfreeze the assets to the Libyan government back in 2015 that were frozen by the Obama administration. And they saw Hunter Biden as a possible vehicle for that. Now, there's no evidence that that deal ever came to fruition. That is, there's no evidence that Hunter himself was hired by these guys to unfreeze those assets in Libya. But what there is evidence of is in this exchange, they're talking about the value that Hunter might be able to bring if they do hire him. They say Hunter's asking price at the time to, again, unfreeze Libyan assets in the Obama administration was $2 million plus success fees, whatever that might be. I assume that's some sort of cut of whatever the assets were that were unfrozen. But at least $2 million, that was his going rate. And they said that one of the reasons why he'd be a valuable asset is because his father, Joe, vice president at the time, had Libya in his portfolio. That's for which he was responsible for. They also talked about Hunter's access to other world leaders by virtue of what you just mentioned, the U.S. Component of a world hunger organization that's based out of the UN. And Hunter at the time was chairman of that organization. If you go and you look at the list of who is members there, it's like a political who's who. These are people who are all very well connected, who are on the board of this organization. And again, Hunter's there because his father's a powerful senator and then eventually vice president of the United States. And again, that's not unusual. A lot of that going on in Washington. A lot of people have jobs because of who they're related to.
It's a big deal.
But in particular, what you have is this guy, Hunter, generating tremendous amounts of cash by virtue of his relationship with his dad. And additionally, that laptop we're talking about, that I want to talk about, but didn't get much conversation, I would say, from the American news media by and large over the course of the past year, contained what we knew to be authentic emails from Hunter Biden back in October of 2020. Just last week or so, about 2 weeks ago, Politico published a report saying that they now believe that the emails on that laptop were authentic. They were able to authenticate them now. And that added to the body of evidence that shows that, look, Hunter's sending emails around talking about how much money he's going to generate from these Chinese companies and these Ukrainian companies. He's in the Chinese company in particular. You heard Maria Bartiromo say it a moment ago. He was going to hold back 10% for the big guy. That's what they wanted to do, a 10% cut for the big guy. That big guy is Joe Biden, at least according to Hunter Biden's former business partner, Tony Bobulinski, who says all of this on the record. So
sure,
I would say that this is a pretty substantial scandal. that is receiving virtually no attention, or at least didn't, especially during the election. There was an effort to really suppress this story during the election. And that is, I think, a gross abdication of the responsibility of the American news media. It's a real story that deserves a lot of real attention.